From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Steve Milton.
It's Thursday, May 2nd. This is Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton. We're joined by Ticats great, and Roughrider great as well, Andy Fantuz, an original member of the Ticats Audio Network, by the way, who is unfortunately now leaving us this week to become a video official with the CFL. Andy is one of the very best receivers to ever play in the CFL. He was in 5 Grey Cups, 2 with the Tiger Cats, and was the first Ticat ever to catch 100 passes in the same season. He was a crowd favorite here, and they let him know it by singing his name every time he caught his pass. You'll remember that. Fantuz. So today, Andy and I will discuss his stellar career as a Tiger Cat, what he can bring to his new job in the CFL replay booth, and the good fortune of playing for the most passionate fan bases in the West and in the East. Well, welcome, Andy, and a bit of goodbye, although you'll be right down the road from us. You're leaving the Ticats Audio Network, sadly, and joining the CFL head office as a video official. Can you walk us through that decision to make that personal move?
Yeah, sure. It's definitely going to be hard to say goodbye and to move on from such a great team that I had with the Ticat Audio Network, and day in, day out, fun people to be around and work with and learn from, and really was just a cool experience, and I really enjoyed it for the last 3 years to be an analyst with the team. So I want to say thank you to all our listeners and my team and everyone who helped me along the way and got me involved in that. But to being in the video official side of things is something I've been kind of looking at for a few years now, and talking with some of the officials that I used to play with, I guess. The guys who refereed me would always talked about how they could appreciate how I communicated with them during the games and before and after the games, and always seemed to have a level head. And so having the game played fairly and the way it's supposed to be played, and making sure that the players and the coaches, that the teams are deciding the outcome, and not not the referees or any mistakes with the replay officials. It is something that's been important to me for a long time. So I guess a long-winded answer is kind of stepping back and really diving into the rules side of the game, and really enhancing my knowledge and experience on that side is something that when it comes to like continuous learning for me in my career, it was something that was very important. And when I got a chance to try it last year in the actual command center, I found it really engaging and full of adrenaline, and I really felt like that was something that I would enjoy. So I'm going to give it a try and see how it goes.
Now, just so our viewers and listeners are clear here, Andy, what's the job entail?
So when it comes to the command center, there's usually at least 4 people in there. There's a technician, there's an injury spotter, and then there's 2 sort of identities that make up the call, or that I guess decide the calls. There's a replay official and a video official, and they really work interconnected. But any plays that are automatically reviewed, scoring plays, turnovers, any hits to the quarterback, for instance, anytime there's questions on whether a player stepped out of bounds or was down by contact, to anything from the coaches throwing a challenge. Those 2 people, which one of them would be me at times, would decide what the call is, and communicate with the head official on the field, as well as the producer of TSN in the truck, to decide like how they're going to, or what the call is, and then how it's going to be aired to the audience.
I think a lot of fans listening to this, and I'll say this right off the top, having known you quite a long time, that your curiosity in this to try something new is a sign of the intelligence that you've always shown. Like you've got a varied life. There's a lot of things. You have always had an awful lot of irons in the fire, whether it's your off-field work with the with education processes and obviously your community work, your family work. Um, so that thing is right away an important thing for fans to know that you're in there. You've never been a guy who wouldn't say what needed to be said. Do you sense that in this job you'll do the same thing too? I mean, you said earlier you want to make sure that the game is played in a fair way, and I'm assuming that you've got some opinions, and you don't have to give them to me, but I'm assuming that they're going to allow you to act as a former player is what I guess I'm saying here.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I will. I'm certainly gonna gonna come in there with my own. I'm gonna do what I think is right. Now, obviously, there's a learning curve.
Right.
I'm just gonna step back. I'm gonna go to training camp. I'm not gonna pretend like I know anything going in. I'm coming in from ground zero. But I think one of the reasons that they are approached me or offered me the job is because of that player experience. And there's a black and white, I guess, objective way of looking at the rules when it comes to things like holding, pass interference. And then there's also okay, what makes sense, what could be avoided, what really had an impact on the play that is a little more blurred between black and white,
Right.
and that's something that I think that they the CFL wants someone who has a little more understanding of the actual impact on the play, and I think that's where I my kind of experience would come in. So I think that being honest with how I feel about the call would be what they're hoping for, and what I would and would make it more just true to the game. So I think for sure I'm gonna just believe in be confident about my decisions and say things or question things when they need to be questioned. So yeah, it's going to be a learning curve, but I certainly don't. Um, I'm not going to be doing what someone else tells me to do or making calls that I don't think are right.
So when I think of Andy Fantuz, the superb receiver who played an honest, intelligent, and absolutely ultra talented game, I recognize that you've had bigger honors than the one I'm about to mention, but I mention it only partly because it's one of the most recent honors you've got. But just before Christmas last year, Football Ontario, which is trying to upgrade the profile of the sport in this province, announced its inaugural class for the Hall of Fame. Inaugural class, first one. In the players category, you were front and center, along with Neil Lumsden and Miles Garrell, former Ticats, just like you, and Hamilton natives, Russ Jackson and Dirty 30, Jim Young. And among the coaches inducted were the late Larry Haler, your coach at Western, and Bernie Custis, for whom the school right across the street from where I'm sitting right now in the stadium that you played here was named. That's a lot of intersections there, Andy, with your own career. And I think you know or knew all or most of those guys. So do you ever look back and pinch yourself about the path that life and football put you on?
Pinch myself. I guess in figuratively, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. There's so many junctions along the way that who knows if I took a different path at that one decision, would it still have ended up even remotely the same? Whether I went to Western or went to a different school, whether it's in the States or in Canada, would I still have made it to the next level, made it to the CFL? There, and that's just one of them. And I'm very fortunate. I don't have any regrets in that sense. That I was able to go to a great school, really develop as a player, come and play as many years as I did in the CFL, meeting all the teammates, coaches, community members, media personalities, just support staff and friends along the way. It, I feel very, very blessed
Amen.
and privileged, and yeah, it's it's kind of crazy that being in the inaugural class of the Football Ontario. Again, very very honored to be even mentioned with those names that you just rang off, and I think it is good for the game here in Ontario. There's the talent's getting better every year. There's lots of good coaches. It's challenging. It's challenging competing with the schedules of families to get young athletes involved in football. It's challenging to find coaches with the limited budgets that are here. And but the players are there, the athletes are there, and I do see it growing, steadily.
Well, can we? I want to revisit, and I know this will embarrass you a little bit. I want to revisit some of the things that put you in that Hall of Fame, and other halls of fame, like Westerns, like Chatham's, like your hometown, and quite probably someday the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. So in 2004, you're the first receiver in 20 years to win the Heck Crichton Award, which is emblematic of the best player in university football in Canada. And you succeeded two Hamilton area guys, actually, the previous 2 years, Jesse Lumsden and the great running back, and Tommy Dennison, the great quarterback. Now, I think you originally considered McMaster when you were playing high school ball in Chatham, but you stayed another year of high school, and then you went to Western. And there, you became the face of CIS football, which is now U Sports football. You had a bobblehead day, and you took a ton of hits. You got the rules changed for how defensive player DBs could play against receivers. You picked off passes when they put you in as a defensive back, and you scored a ton of touchdowns. Speed and hands. You were all Canadian 3 times, left the school with 1 million records in your pocket, a must-watch college player. But then, and this is appropriate, this being draft week, you get drafted by Saskatchewan, and not the 2 closest teams to Chatham, the Ticats or the Argos. But I think that worked out pretty well, and I'm presuming you wouldn't change anything about that part of it.
Yeah, it's wow. It's
long question, I realize. Sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting listening to all that. I guess to start with, you talked about potentially going to McMaster, and that's true. I was still part of the years where OAC was a thing in high school, and I had fast tracked through high school, so I had my 5 years done in 4 years. Committed to McMaster. Greg Marshall was the coach at the time, and then that's the summer where I started playing for the Essex Ravens, which was the OVFL at the time, and had a really great season. And then I decided, okay, maybe I'll try to see where football can take me, and maybe earn a scholarship in the U.S. So I came back from my victory, my 5th year in high school, and did switch over to Western. So that's another one of those decisions that could have led me a different way. And then you go to getting drafted after my 4 years at Western. Getting drafted, well, maybe if I went to Hamilton or Toronto or any other team, really, would it have panned out the same way as it did in my early years in Saskatchewan? It was humbling to get to the pros, just like it was when I got into college. So many great players on the team, so much competition. I had to buy my time to see the field. And but along the way, I just embraced it all and really got involved in the community. I think that's really started my love and passion for that side of it. Was in Regina. I did a little bit of that in college, but certainly was busy with school and football and just being not even a young adult still. So I really embraced that side of it, and then kind of brought that over to me in Hamilton 6 years later. And those are all those cities that I was in, teams I played for, even just the coaches deciding what position I was going to play. Who knows how those different paths, if they still would have ended up in the same spot.
Well, it's funny because sort of 6 years, your first 6 years in Regina, second 6 years here, 2 of the most passionate markets around. I want to flash back, connecting those 2 things to 2006, your first year, and week 10, you made your first start that year against, of course, the Tiger Cats. And a few games later, you got your first touchdowns. And I do mean that in the plural, in the same game against BC, one on offense and one on defense. I'm not sure we'd believe that if we read it in a novel. So can you run that one by us, how that happened?
I think that might be more of a technicality than anything.
Yeah.
The first one was a fumble recovery,
Right.
so that's maybe why it was recorded as a defensive touchdown, but it wasn't. Kerry Joseph was a quarterback at the time, and he was scrambling up the middle, and he fumbled the ball, got it poked out from behind on maybe the 6-yard line or something like that, and I was just blocking for him in front of him, and saw the ball bounce and ran over and jumped on it. So that was my first touchdown because I fell on it in the end zone. And then that game went into overtime, and Kerry threw me a pass for the winning touchdown of the game in overtime in the same game. So it was pretty exciting time. I specifically remember running down my sideline through all my teammates with the crowd going wild. It was a lot of fun.
Very Fantuzian that day. And here we go with the intersections again. So you hold two of the top 5 biggest reception games ever in Rider history, and number 3 came in the 2000 season against the Ticats. Geez, no wonder they wanted you here. So when you caught 7 for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns, and those 3 touchdowns I think are still tied for the best TD performance. They were at the time, anyways, in Saskatchewan franchise history. And then you're named the Grey Cup's most valuable Canadian, and it was just the Riders' 3rd cup, and the coach was Kent Austin, who also coached you in Hamilton. What do you remember about that game?
Well, the Ticat game, I can remember. I had a lot of family. Anytime I came to Hamilton or Toronto when I was playing for Saskatchewan, I had 80 or 90 tickets, and so I had lots of family and friends there. So that was really special, and I caught the first 2 passes of the game, and for big yardage and then a touchdown, and then I caught another long touchdown. So, and well, you said it, 240 with 3, but I remember that game because Jason Claremont, who was a guy I looked up to, an amazing Canadian receiver playing for the BC Lions at the time. He had a really big week that same week, and there was a thing called Canadian Player of the Week, and he played the day before, and I remember him messaging me right after the game and just giving me a little chirp about something about how he thought he had Canadian Player of the Week locked up there, and then I stole it from him. So it was kind of cool for him to reach out to me like that, because we hadn't talked too much before that, other than small talk, and for him to kind of show some love and some respect and give me a little chirping was cool. And then the Grey Cup, I remember our team really went on a run near the end of the season and really came together. We had so much fun day in and day out, and really were playing for each other. Had an amazing playoff run and got to that big game, and it was in Toronto. Again, I had lots of family there. And it was a defensive battle, really, that game. It was a struggle to get anything going. Kerry, Joseph, and we weren't quite on the same page. He had me open a few times deep, and just overthrew me. Maybe a faster guy would have caught it, but regardless, it was sort of really hard to get anything going. And then I finally got that one pass in the 4th quarter where I was able to make a few moves and get all the way into the end zone, which ended up being the winning touchdown, and got the Canadian great MVP of the game. And I just remember the confetti falling, the sense of relief, just the sheer joy on the captains' faces when they were hoisting the trophy under the confetti. I just remember being just so, like, I'm getting the chills just thinking about it right now. Just an incredible experience, and one I'll never forget. It was the first Grey Cup out of 5 that I ended up playing in, and the only one I won. And had a few heartbreaks along the way, and I always tell the younger players, like, seize the moment, don't let this one slip by. enjoy the process, just take it all in, because you never know if you're ever going to get there again, let alone
Win
never
it.
going to win again.
Yeah, I
Um,
won't bring up the 13th man, but you should have won that game, right? You should have 2 rings, right?
yeah, there's that one. There was another one on a penalty that most Ticat fans will remember in 2014.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and then there was another one by 2 points. So there was a couple
We're talking
couple
we're
close
talking the
ones.
speedy
Could
run
be,
back there.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Could be 4-1, but I'm 1-4
But that's
instead.
now. Yeah, you
Uh,
mentioned Jason Claremont there. I think he played was part of that Saskatchewan Canadian Air Force, right? With you and Bag and I guess the adopted Saskatchewani and Weston Dressler. That was that group, right? Early in your
yeah,
career.
and Chris Getzlaff was part of that as well.
Yeah, and Getzlaff, right? Of course, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We had a it was an amazing era to be a part of a receiving core like that, and a team that a resurging team. It's very similar to the years with
I
Hamilton.
was just going to say that. I was just going to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. My sort of my stints in Regina and Hamilton were similar in so many ways.
They're
They're
very symmetrical.
definitely,
Very
yeah,
symmetrical. Yeah.
different chapters of my life, different, I guess, approaches to the game, but yeah, symmetrical for sure.
Right.
In that we had some success in bulk in bulk or in chunks, and a lot of great players and a lot of just really close calls, and
Right.
yeah, it's crazy thinking about
You
it
could, yeah,
all.
well, you could go nuts on the what if part too, right? So now let's flash forward to how you get to Hamilton and 2012, and people forget this. There was a 2012 was a year in which was sort of a lot of people considered the last gasp chance for football to really in Southern Ontario to get its grasp. So it was, the Grey Cup was going to be played in Toronto. It was going to be the 100th Grey Cup, and when you're a free agent. And considering Hamilton over Saskatchewan, Scott Mitchell, who of course runs this franchise, said that when it appeared that you were leaving and leaning Hamilton's way, and I'll quote him on this: significant movement by our on the fence fans for season's tickets. Ticats CA, which was in its infancy right now, and which is obviously still rolling, had the most traffic it had ever had in the off season during that period when you were trying to figure out if you were coming here. And Drew Edwards' blog Scratching Post in the Hamilton Spectator, which became Three Down Nation, had its biggest 3 days ever at that period in time. Now, it was kind of a race between the Argos and Ticats for supremacy there, at least in the offseason. The Argos signed Scott Milanovich, who you end up working with here with the network. Uh, as a coach here, as a coach, and Ricky Ray as the quarterback. And so the Tiger Cats countered with George Cortez, a well-known coach at the time. That didn't work out too well, but it seemed like a great hire at the time. And then they got you. The Grey Cup was it to be in Toronto that year, and many felt, as I said, it was Southern Ontario's last gasp at CFL relevance. Did you sense that? And from watching you all your career, I really believe that you treated selling the game in Southern Ontario as part of the job. Am I right?
Um, yeah, well, let me
Maybe
think here.
selling's the wrong word, but
Yeah, like I was always very proud of where I came from. The Tiger Cats were my hometown team, coming growing up in Chatham. My dad was a big Ticat fan his whole life, so that's the team I knew the most. And that off season was really important. And I don't know if it's fair to compare me to Ricky Ray. Maybe you should talk about Henry Burris, that signing to
right,
Ricky
that's
Ray,
true. Yeah,
as he came in the same year, um, and it ended up working out. We had a great team. We did, and we just couldn't quite get the close games that year. It's just one of those seasons that I guess I'll tell a story about the when I fumbled the snap on the game in Calgary that I was trying to hold for Luca Conji to kick it, and we could have won the game or at least gotten overtime or something, and instead we're knocked out of the playoffs. That was sort of how the season felt. It was
right.
just something that seemed so routine to me. I had pretty good hands. I never had that happen before in my whole career, and it just happened that year. And that's what seemed to happen that entire year, because our offense was flying around. But I'm not saying our defense couldn't help us either. They had a lot of playmakers too. We just couldn't do it at the right time during games and put it together. So it was a frustrating season. It was the last season at Ivor Wynn,
Right.
and so it kind of sad to put that historic building to rest on that note. But it was the start of a turnaround in Hamilton, I believe, because we of course made the Grey Cup the 2 following years, even though we were in transition in the Guelph year and moving
And
into
should have been there 3 years, actually. Probably should have been 3 years in a row. You know,
yeah, it definitely could have been. So
could have been. So then we come to the sorry, Andy.
No, go ahead. Okay.
I was going to say, then we come to the Guelph year, the very next year, and nobody would have given you a chance to make the Grey Cup. You're playing. I mean, let's just run over this for a minute or here. It's the Guelph year. You don't have a stadium. Mac doesn't want you to play there, so you're forced to go up to Guelph to play all the games. Weather up there is insane, almost every game. You're taking HSR buses from the team offices where you'd built a dressing room to practices at McMaster. Then you had games at Guelph. There, and you'd mentioned your dad before, your family becomes a bit famous for their sprawling tailgate set up in the parking lot right across the road from Alumni Stadium at the Cutting Club. And that was really, I mean, you can't make that stuff up, the kind of year that was in 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to replicate that one again.
Right.
We talked about the weather. That's one thing I certainly remember. Dressing in the portables that they had set up for us there. Bringing in the extra stands. The tailgate parties are great. I still get stories from fans to this day about that year, and I thought it was kind of cool that they got another community in southwestern Ontario really involved, because I sort of feel like everything outside of the GTA is sort of Hamilton territory when it comes to southwestern
Right.
Ontario. And so to reach out and engage those fans even more, I thought that was great for the team and even for the league. I hope that they continue to have at least preseason games in other cities, whether it's Windsor or London or Guelph again or anywhere in between. So that was it was a cool year. I thought the busing to practice every day was had some benefits. It did force us to be together in a off the field, quote unquote, kind of way, so we could just get to know each other a bit and goof around and make those friendships. It certainly didn't help to. You lose a lot of time, of course, when it's already limited time in a football day. We lost a lot of time on the bus, but it did have some benefits to it. So
right. And somehow you guys make the Grey Cup that year. I mean, again, there should be a movie about this. And you have that improbable win against Montreal in the semifinals. They thought they had it won. The big wind, another weather day there where the wind held up the field goal. And then you have the big win against Toronto with you playing a very key role. And wouldn't you know it, when you get to the Grey Cup, not only is the opposition the Roughriders, the Grey Cup is in Regina. That's surreal, right?
Yeah. Just
2 years after you leave. I'm not even 2 years after you leave. Right.
I know. The Roughriders had such a long drought, similar to the Ticats right now, I guess, of winning. It was 89 before we won in 2007, and those players, only 2 years later, still a lot of the guys that were friends of mine, and I was cheering for them during their playoff run. But then, of course, we start going head to head, and we're there for the whole week long doing practice, and it was it was great to see some old faces, some staples in town, places I used to go, and people. But it was a business trip, and it was conflicting for me, I guess, is what I'm trying to get. It was emotionally conflicting, and we just, it's too bad that we kind of snowballed out of control there. A few bounces one way or another. I think it's a totally different game, and it ended up being pretty deciding win for the Roughriders. But I think if a few things went differently early, it would have been a completely different game, and who knows what would have happened.
Well, you made it again the next year, and we've referred to that earlier, where there was the penalty, the speedy call, and in 2016, though, you became the first Tiger Cat to have more than 100 receptions when you got 101, and it would have been higher, but it would, you missed the final game because you tore your ACL, and I think it was ACL, right? And that put you out for much of the following season. That had to be tough, right?
Yeah, it sort of happened early on in the second last game in the season, and we were, yeah, it, it was a hard one to put my finger on because I felt like I was feeling really good, feeling healthy, and to have a non-contact injury like that, um, it, uh, it was frustrating for
Right.
sure, and to go through that rehab process again, being the age I was, what would that have been, 20, 30, 33, 34 maybe, was difficult, but I grew from that experience as well. I learned some new things that some processes in treatment and in training that I use today in my both in my career and for myself, and much much more limited athletic endeavors I do, but still I'm still trying to keep going, and so that was a learning experience both physically, mentally, and I was able to kind of approach the game more of a on a leadership side for much of that next season, and get but I did get back out there and played a few games and stayed healthy, so that was um, that was quite a experience as well.
The, I think you also learned. This is again speaks to your curiosity and your intelligence that you spent some time helping coach while you were hurt part of that year. But you come back when you came back. June Jones had replaced Kent Austin in there, and who coached you both in Saskatchewan and here. And at the end of that year, the Ticats didn't resign you. You didn't retire until partway through the next season. And when you did, the Ticats honored you at a game against, of course, the Riders, and the crowd gave you a standing ovation. And they did what they always did here. As soon as they announced your name, Fantuz, they do that whole twos part, heavy emphasis on the U's. Why did you retire? And then we'll have one more question, and then we'll call it a day. Why did you retire?
Yeah, it was important to me to retire during that specific game,
Right,
because of who the opponent was.
right,
Both those teams played such an instrumental part in my life and my career, and so to be able to say goodbye to the Hamilton fans in person and some Hamilton fans on TV, but also, of course, being able to the majority of the Saskatchewan fans would have been through the television. So for me, that was really important that I did it during that game, so I could do that. I don't know if you remember, my parents came on the field.
I
One had a
do,
Ticats jersey, one had a
I
Saskatchewan
do.
jersey. I had a bus full of people tailgating at that game. Half were in green and white, half were in black and gold. So it was I guess a bow to put on my career. And why did I retire? Well, I think priorities were changing for me.
Right,
That's probably the best answer. I thought about what the pros are to continue to play, for my life, for my family, and what the cons could be if there was another some more serious injuries or anything like that. We had a baby on the way.
right.
Our first child was
You were
on the
due with
way.
Abigail, yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
and I brought her on the field that game. She was only 3 weeks old,
right.
but of course, when I made the decision, she was still in the belly, and I was ready um, to move on to something new. I guess
Right.
I didn't have that same passion for my off season uh, and drive that I did before. I was thinking more about our family life, what's coming next, getting into my post football career, and yeah, I think that especially when you're getting older, but anytime when you have some distractions in your mind from total focus on being the best you can be, on and off the field as a athlete, that's when you're more susceptible to have a decrease in play performance or even a higher risk of injury. So I thought this is a good clean way to say goodbye and move on into a different chapter.
Right. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that. And I'll add one more detail, and I think we'll wrap it up there, Andy, and let you get on to back to your family. On that day, you talked about, your parents wearing one sweater, one the other, the half the bus wear one sweater, one or the other, but yourself, even your own attire. It was a perfect mashup of your great career in two passionate markets. You're wearing the Grey Cup ring that you won with the Riders and the number 83 jersey that was synonymous with your great Tiger Cat career. So thanks for the great career, and thanks for from all the colleagues here at Ticats Audio Network. Geez, I'll get that right one of these days. And good luck in your new job. I know you're going to bring intelligence and integrity to that job too. And maybe one time when the call goes your way and they know you're doing it, you'll hear that. You hear the fans here going twos after if the call goes their way. So
Yeah.
Thanks again, Andy. Best of luck in the replay control. You've been loved in two cities that are very passionate, and one of the few riders, I will say, whom Saskatchewan fans never resented for leaving from leaving their town. So that speaks to your class. So, and from the crew here at Ticats Audio Network, where Andy was a charter member, thanks to all of you for taking the time to listen, watch, and read. Tune in tomorrow for a Ticat Notebook column. This has been Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton.
This has been Ticats Today with Steve Milton. Catch it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.